Okay, hello everyone. My name's Jeff. If you've been checking out the other videos, this is related to coming into Mexico and for the first time in many years, not being allowed 180 days to be in the country for simply, presenting a passport and indicating tourist intentions, right? So I came into Mexico late 2021, was only given 31 days, was hoping for 180. Ultimately, there was no recourse for getting more days on my card while I was in the country. I left Mexico, came back in, presented a whole host of documents that I discuss in parts 1 and 2, and was able to get, while not 180 days, 175. This video is about my specific strategy for doing that, which was to fly from Mexico City to Tijuana, cross into San Diego on foot, cross back into Tijuana on foot, and then fly back to Mexico City. Okay, I wanted to kind of talk about this process. There's many ways to leave the country and come back. I also discussed that in part 2. So possibly some other route is going to be more affordable or time efficient for you. Or maybe, like I said in the previous video, not even worth it if you're only going to be, in one touristy area and not overstaying by very many days. So let's talk how to do a Mexico City to Tijuana border run. Now, why did I fly from Mexico City to Tijuana and then cross on foot? Because a domestic flight from Mexico City to Tijuana is much cheaper than flying from Mexico City to San Diego. It's just a few more miles, but it can bump up the price by $150, $200 easily. Now, some considerations. Tijuana, and if you're from Tijuana, I say this with all respect, it seems like there's a lot of history and a lot of cool stuff going. I don't know the town very well, but Tijuana gives me the heebie-jeebies. I say this like I travel all around Mexico. I've been in a lot of places, a lot of big cities. Tijuana uniquely kind of gives me the willies, and so what I want to make sure of is when I get into Tijuana. Sorry, I got to stop saying it. Tijuana. It's Tijuana. When I get to Tijuana, I want to make sure that I have sufficient daylight to take care of all of my border stuff and then get to where I'm staying in Tijuana or back to the airport or something while there's still daylight. So I looked for a flight that left very early from Mexico City. Now, you are helped by the fact that you lose 2 hours when you go to Tijuana. So I left at 7, and instead of getting there at 10:30, I got there at 8:30. Okay, so you've got some time. Now, when you get to the airport in Tijuana, you have 2 options for crossing the border on foot. There is the main San Isidro border crossing that you can take from Tijuana into San Diego, or uniquely, if you fly into Tijuana and you're in the airport, you can take what's called the CBX, the Cross-Border Express. Now, the Cross-Border Express requires an additional fee. In the high season, which is what I'm in currently, it was $19, and you also have to provide a boarding pass, your boarding pass from the flight, in order to cross out. Now, my thought was, okay, I'm already in the airport. I'm going to cross this border. Because there's this fee, the line's going to be short, and I'll save time. It's all going to work out great. Now, possibly it was because I was crossing on December 23rd, that there was a lot of extra people there. That's a possibility, I'm not sure. But it ended up being a long-ass line. The reason I did that was because before coming to Tijuana, I saw a video posted by a guy saying that, man, the line from, the San Isidro line from Tijuana into San Diego was like, 2 hours. Well, the CBX line was 2 hours. And then when you leave the CBX, now you're far away from the San Isidro. You're like, a 7-mile walk from the San Isidro border. So what I ended up doing was I left and I started walking, and you're in this really just, depressing industrial area of San Diego. And I walked and walked and walked, and I realized, man, I'm losing all kinds of time. It occurred to me maybe that, staying, not crossing and then immediately coming back would be to my benefit. Somehow that would make my case more appealing to let me back into the country. I don't know. What I ultimately did was I walked from the CBX exit several miles to Otay Mesa, street or avenue or whatever it was, there's a bus line that runs along that road, and just by coincidence, because I hadn't researched it, I was able to get the very last bus out of there that drops you at the trolley in San Diego, which will then take you directly to the San Ysidro border. Obviously, you could take an Uber as well from the CBX exit to the San Ysidro border is like a $20 Uber ride, but the Tijuana airport to the San Ysidro border would have been a $10 Uber ride because you're on the Mexican side. So I can't really say the CBX was not faster or cheaper in my case. So if I were to do it again, I would probably just go straight to the San Ysidro border from the Tijuana airport. One consideration, and this is just common throughout Mexico, is if you're in an area where there's a lot of taxis lined up, it is not a great idea to call an Uber directly to that area. There's a lot of competition between traditional taxistas and Uber drivers, and a lot of Uber drivers might cancel when they see that that's where you want to be picked up. So you either need to walk kind of farther away from the airport, or hope for the best with an Uber driver, have something arranged in advance, or just negotiate with the taxi driver. You might get a cheaper price from a taxi driver. I've kind of found that that's a little bit unpredictable. You could either say, hey, how much to get to the San Ysidro border, or they can just do the meter, whatever. It's probably cheaper to do that than to go to San Diego and then cross the other way. So I crossed into San Diego. Coming back, there's a few different border options for crossing from San Diego back into Tijuana. I chose the main border. It's called PED East. If you look that up on Google, PED East. Supposedly it's open 24 hours. I've never tried to, go anytime outside of kind of basic working hours. So I showed up there. And again, who knows what was going on because of the holidays, but I was the only person crossing from the United States into Mexico. Now, I've heard two different schools of thought about how to cross a border when you're traveling, like a land border. One is that you want to show up when it's not busy, because that way things are calmer, you're less likely to encounter friction, pass on through. What I found was that when I crossed this border 2 years ago on foot, I crossed from San Diego into Tijuana with my bicycle. I was hairy and sweaty and had my bicycle and all my gear and blah, 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 blah. Easy peasy. There's a big line, I crossed through it, explained my situation. Granted, this was before they were kind of giving people trouble about the tourist visa, but it was easy. Now, this time, there's nobody. They have all the time in the world, and they used it to hassle me. Instead of stamping my passport and having me pay for a tourist card, I had to sit down for a whole interview. I discussed that process in part 2. So, it's really hard to say. I've heard the opposite school of thought that, show up when it's busy. They just want to get people through. They have less time. They don't want conflict. They just want to get you on through. So, what I would say is just regardless, be prepared. Have your documents, have your story straight, be ready to talk. So I crossed that border, had the interview, presented my documents, was ultimately given 175 days, thank God, and crossed back into Tijuana. So like I say, when you leave the Tijuana border, you're in the San Ysidro border exit. Again, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Tijuana gives me this, sketches me out. I don't like that part of town. So, I made sure to put on my grungy clothes, black hoodie, face mask, the whole deal. I was just carrying one black backpack, didn't have a bunch of luggage. I walked a distance away from where the taxis were congregating, called up an Uber. I already had a place to stay set up in Tijuana, and like I say, because I started that process early in the day, I was able to get to where I was staying by, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon. There's still plenty of daylight. Go get some food, be home by dark. So then, coming back to Mexico City the next day, get dropped off at the Tijuana airport. Pretty easy process, flying Volaris is cheaper generally, but do try to show up early. They're very understaffed, and so getting from Mexico City to Tijuana was streamlined, no problem. Getting back was a hassle, not for any major problem, but because my boarding pass wouldn't load, so I have to go to the airport and get it there. The QR code reader they have doesn't work. You got to stand in line. I waited like an hour and 20 minutes to get my boarding pass. So show up early enough that you don't have to have any issues. And then I came back to Mexico City. Now, the nice thing about the Mexico City airport currently, and this is set to change in the next couple of years when they construct a new airport, but right now, the Benito Juarez, International Airport is a metro stop. So you can get straight onto the metro from the airport without having to walk through any district. And from there, you can, kind of get to whatever part of the city that you're staying in, or in my case, I'm staying to the north of Mexico City in Estado de Mexico. So I was able to get to the end of my metro line and then take a van, combi, from the metro station to where I'm staying. Again, do your thing. What I would suggest, similar to when you're getting into Tijuana, some of those peripheral areas of the metro can get a little sketchy. So if you're taking late night transport, I would not recommend one that makes stops along the highway. Try to find one that's direct. So if you can figure that out in advance, one that might take longer to fill when you're at the metro station, but only drops people off and keeps the door locked from the outside. You want one that is only dropping people off, takes you directly to where you want to go, so that you're not having to change combis at 10, 11 at night and potentially just be standing there twiddling your thumbs in an unknown part of the city. Yeah. Again, this is all if you want to do a speed run like I did. I didn't want to spend the extra money to go hang out extra days in Tijuana. I wanted to just get there, get back as quickly as possible. One thing I was curious about is if, crossing and then immediately coming back would be a problem. So I had it in my head that, if I spend, 2 or 3 hours outside of the country and then come back in, that'll help my case. He didn't even bring up the fact that, I wasn't going to let you in, but now I see that you spent 3 hours in San Diego, so, no problem. I don't know. It didn't seem to be a factor in that conversation. Potentially it could be. So if you have the time and the money and just the situation to stay out of the country for 5 days and then come back, that could potentially help. Also, I'd only been in the country for, like 15 days of my visa by the time that I was doing this. So it was pretty evident that I was doing it as a way to address the, tourist card issue. But anyway, that is how I personally left the country. Again, you could cross at any number of different land borders. You could cross at an airplane. You could use ride-sharing services to get to a border crossing rather than an airplane. Whatever ends up being more comfortable, affordable, for you. A lot of that's going to be seasonal, the way the prices are handled. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to, try to give you any information. If you have an experience like this, please post it, because Mexican government sources don't have good information currently about what to expect at the border, and we're kind of just learning based on other people having problems right now. So good luck to you. Enjoy Mexico, and we'll see you soon.